17 of the fantasy football season. And if you made it to your championship, congratulations. And here's a few defense special team units that maybe could put you over the top and help you win your league this week. The first unit's the Carolina Panthers. So the Panthers here, they've been a train wreck over the last 2 months of the season. But right here, this is a division matchup in Week 17 in New Orleans. And the Saints, believe it or not, give up the 15th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. I know Taysom Hill got activated off the protocol list here, so he's going to be good to go. After Book, he looked like a rookie in last week's ball game versus the Dolphins. So the last few weeks here for this Panther team, Week 14 versus the Atlanta Falcons, 23 points allowed, a fumble recovery. Week 15 at Buffalo, 31 points allowed. Surprisingly, 4 sacks, though, and an interception. And then last week versus Tom Brady and the Bucs, no chance in that one. 32 points allowed, -1 fantasy points. But right here, I think this could be a low-scoring game. Taysom Hill, obviously, is a better runner of the football than a traditional quarterback for this Saint team here. And I think the Panthers could keep it close early until later in the ball game, where the Saints probably pull away a little. But I think they could get a few sacks. I think they could get a couple turnovers in this one. And if you're very desperate for a defense, they're not the worst option in the world, and they're available in 78% of fantasy leagues. The next defense is the Cleveland Browns. So the Browns all season, I've been saying, this defense has a great front four, and they got one of the best corners in the league as well, and Denzel Ward. And this week here, not a horrible matchup on Monday Night Football at the Pittsburgh Steelers that give up the 17th most fantasy points to defenses on the season. So there's been hints this could be possibly one of the last games, and obviously the last Monday Night Football ball game of Ben Roethlisberger's career. News has come out and hints over the last couple of days here. So right now, 58% of fantasy leagues, this Brown defense is available. And the last few weeks for them here, week of 14 versus Baltimore, 22 points allowed, 4 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, including a touchdown in that one. Week 15 versus the Raiders, 16 points allowed, 2 sacks, and then a fumble recovery. And then last week at Green Bay, they didn't do anything in that ball game. 24 points allowed versus Aaron Rodgers and that high-powered offense. So going back to Week 8 versus the same Steeler offense, 15 points allowed, 2 sacks in that one. So I think we could see a similar performance. This ball game between these two division rivals, mid-teens to low 20s in this one. Like I said, they got some defensive guys here. Obviously, you got Myles Garrett, one of the better pass rushers in the league. Jadeveon Clowney, when he decides to have a good game, he could have his good game. And you got Denzel Ward and Malik Jackson on that line as well. So I think here the Steeler offense is shot. And Big Ben, obviously, Father Time's caught up to him. And I think in this one, the Browns could get a few sacks on Roethlisberger and maybe 1 or 2 turnovers and hold this game to a decently low-scoring matchup. And the third and final defense I have as a sleeper is the New York Giants. I know the Giants, they've been horrible the whole season here, but right here, the Chicago Bear offense hasn't been any better as well. Like I mentioned with the kicker video as sleepers, if you watched it, this ball game I could see being a field goal type of matchup between the two teams, where the defenses actually go out there and make some stops, get a few sacks, and maybe a couple turnovers. So the Bears do give up the 4th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season, and that's the only thing going for the Giants here as a desperate sleeper option, available in 97% of fantasy leagues. So the last few weeks here for the Giants, nothing of importance really though. Week 14 at the Chargers, 37 points allowed, 2 sacks. Week 15 versus the Cowboys, 21 points allowed, 3 sacks, a fumble recovery. And then last week at Philly, they got the doors blown off on defense, 28 points allowed and a sack. So right here, I'm only recommending them as a desperation sleeper because the Bears offense isn't all that great like I mentioned, and they give up a decent amount of fantasy points to defenses. So that's a few defensive sleepers here I got for Week 17 of the fantasy football season.